When Sergeant Alex Monroe found the dog outside a collapsed house in the no-man's land between two battle zones, he didn't expect anything more than a scared animal. But then he saw the note. Scribbled in a child's handwriting, barely legible through the dirt and blood, it read, "Please don't leave him. He's waiting for me." And beneath that, a map. The skies above Krasnov Hill were stained with smoke, and the ground beneath Sergeant Alex Monroe's boots crunched with broken glass and ash. He had seen his share of war zones during his deployment, but something about this particular village unsettled him. It wasn't just the destruction, it was the silence. The buildings were skeletal remains of homes that once held laughter, meals, life. Now, everything was ghostly quiet, except for the distant rattle of gunfire echoing across the hills like thunder muttering to itself. Alex was part of a small recon unit assigned to sweep the area for survivors or intelligence. Just ahead, Private Torres gave a low whistle and gestured toward a collapsed structure near the edge of the village. "Movement," he said quietly. "Near that chimney. Might be a dog." Alex raised his binoculars and scanned the direction. At first, he saw nothing but rubble and scattered belongings, dolls, a broken television, a child's bicycle twisted like modern art. Then it moved. A German shepherd, lean but strong, emerged from behind a fallen beam. Its fur was caked in soot and dried blood, but its posture was alert, calm even. The dog sat, watching the soldiers with steady eyes, head tilted slightly as if curious. "No barking," Alex muttered. "No growling. Just waiting." They approached carefully, weapons lowered. The last thing they wanted was to spook the animal. The dog didn't run. It didn't flinch. It stood up, took 3 steps forward, and sat again. Alex crouched and extended a hand. "Hey there, buddy. You someone's good boy?" To his surprise, the dog took a step closer. That's when he saw the paper. Tied around the collar with a piece of red string, frayed and stained, was a folded note. The edges were damp, and the center bore a single dark fingerprint, blood or ink, he couldn't tell. Gently, he untied it, careful not to tear the fragile paper. He unfolded it slowly. Scrawled in shaky, uneven handwriting were the words. "Please don't leave him. He's waiting for me. If you find him, I'm going to the red tree. Past the creek, where the road ends. L." Alex stared at it, heart thudding. He flipped the paper. On the back, a rough drawing, a hill with a crooked tree, a curved river, and an X marked near the roots of the tree. "She left him," Torres said behind him, peering over his shoulder. "Or maybe, she had to." Alex looked at the dog again. He was staring toward the hills to the north, toward the direction the map indicated. "He's guarding the house," Alex said quietly. "Or maybe he's been waiting for her to come back." They checked the building. Inside, it was worse than expected. The roof had collapsed inward, and there were signs of a struggle, bloodstains on the walls, overturned furniture, a trail of smudged footprints leading out the back. But no bodies. No girl. Just a shattered home and a single word carved into the wood of a fallen cabinet door. "Leo." "That must be the dog's name," Alex said. He crouched beside the shepherd and reached for the collar. "Leo, huh? Is that you?" The dog didn't react. He didn't have to. His eyes said everything. Alex stood, pocketing the note. "We're taking him." Torres hesitated. "Protocol says we don't take in animals." "I don't care about protocol," Alex snapped. "There's a girl out there, maybe injured, maybe being hunted, and this dog's the only one who knows where she went. I'm not leaving him behind." Leo didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just rose and stood beside Alex, like he had been waiting for the order all along. The unit regrouped at the eastern edge of the village. Lieutenant Harris raised an eyebrow at the dog. "What the hell is that?" "A message," Alex replied, handing him the note. Harris read it, expression tightening. Could be bait. Could be a trap. Or it could be a girl who needs help, Alex shot back. And I'm betting on the second one. They set out as the sun began to dip behind the broken skyline. Leo led the way, pausing at every fork in the road, sniffing the air, scanning the horizon. Alex followed close behind, rifle slung but ready, heart pounding not from fear, but from something else. Hope. As they left the village behind, Alex glanced back once. The ruins shimmered in the orange light, and for a moment, he imagined what the house used to look like. Maybe there were birthday parties there. Maybe that red string had once tied a balloon. Maybe Leo had once played fetch in the yard with a girl named Elle. Now, there were only ashes. But the note was still warm in his pocket. They walked through shattered streets and quiet woods, and the dog never faltered. He wasn't lost. He was going home. The sun dipped low as the unit followed Leo across a field of broken fences and sunken ditches. The further they traveled, the more obvious it became, this dog wasn't wandering. He was leading them. Sergeant Alex Monroe walked with purpose behind him, eyes alternating between the terrain and the crude map drawn on the back of the note. Every curve in the river, every copse of trees, they were all where they should be. The girl's directions were remarkably accurate, especially for someone likely under duress. And there, just as twilight set in, they saw it. The red tree. It stood alone on a small ridge past a bend in the creek, its bark scarred and flaking with a deep rust-colored hue that gave it its name. A twisted oak, its branches stretching like claws into the orange sky, it looked like it had been struck by lightning and somehow survived. Leo ran ahead, ears perked, and stopped at the tree's base. He sniffed the roots, then circled a spot about 3 feet to the left, pawing softly at the dirt. Alex caught up and knelt beside him. The soil was recently disturbed. Torres scanned the area through binoculars. No buildings. No smoke. No people. Just the tree. Harris ordered a perimeter sweep while Alex cleared away the surface layer of dirt. Just beneath, buried in a rusted biscuit tin, he found something. Another note. This one was folded neatly, placed between 2 sheets of plastic to protect it from moisture. A length of yellow ribbon was looped through the top. He opened it slowly, his gloved hands gentle. If you found this, I'm probably still okay. I heard gunfire near the road and I couldn't go back. I told Leo to stay at the house. I knew someone would find him. I'm going to the old shelter, where Dad said to go if anything bad ever happened. It's in the woods past the second creek, near the broken rail car. There's a lock. The code is 4381. At the bottom was a single word. Please hurry. And below that, the initial again, L. Alex looked up at Harris, who had just joined them. She left a second message. She's heading toward a shelter beyond the second creek. Harris read the note, his jaw tense. That's almost 5 clicks into red territory. Deep woods. Could be mined. We can go around, Torres offered. Swing south, follow the ridgeline. Adds distance, but it's safer. Alex didn't hesitate. We go. The team adjusted their route and resumed. Leo led again, pausing now and then to sniff the air or circle a tree. The wind had picked up, and with it came the distant thump of artillery, still far off, but not far enough. As they walked, Alex couldn't shake the thought of the girl writing those notes, hiding tins under a tree, training her dog to stay. She wasn't just scared, she was smart. Precise. Intentional. Who is she? Torres asked quietly. This isn't just some kid. She knew code, survival points. She thought like a soldier. Alex nodded. Her father must have taught her. The note said, where Dad said to go. She followed instructions under pressure. That's training. As they reached the second creek, the terrain shifted. Thicker brush. Less visibility. Leo slowed now, sniffing more intently. The woods were darker here, shadows tangled with mist and broken branches. The air smelled like wet metal and pine. Then Leo stopped. Ahead, half hidden by vines and wreckage, was a derailed freight car, tilted on its side, one wheel half buried in the earth. Near its base, a metal hatch lay against a mound of rock. A rusted padlock secured it. And beside it, scratched into the metal with what looked like a nail, were the numbers. 4381. Alex approached, motioning for silence. He knelt, entered the code, and turned the lock. It clicked open. He slowly pushed the hatch door forward with a loud groan of steel on steel. Nothing moved inside. Flashlight beams swept the interior. The shelter was cramped, barely more than a dugout space reinforced with sheet metal. Blankets, empty food tins, a solar-powered lamp. A water bottle. A child's jacket. But no girl. She was here, Torres said, his voice grim. Not long ago. Alex found a notebook on the floor. It was water-stained but intact. Inside, more notes. Sketches. Observations. One entry read. Heard helicopters 2 days ago. Waited for Leo. No sign. Trying not to be afraid. Someone passed the road. Too dangerous to move. Running low on water. May try to reach the fire tower. Alex stood upright. She left again. She's heading to the fire tower. That's 8 clicks from here, Harris said, swearing under his breath. Alex looked at Leo, who was already facing east, toward a faint silhouette rising in the distance through the trees. He nodded. She's not running. She's navigating. We follow her route, we'll catch up. Torres checked his watch. If she kept moving, she could be near it by dawn. Alex stepped out of the shelter. Then we don't wait for dawn. We move now. As the squad picked up speed, darting through thickets and brush, Leo ran beside them, faster now, more focused. The girl's trail wasn't cold. Not yet. Somewhere in the forest, she was still out there, surviving, calculating, waiting. And her note, the one tied to her dog's collar, had found exactly who it needed to find. A soldier. One who understood loyalty. And how far you go to answer a whisper for help. The wind whipped through the treetops, scattering leaves across the darkened forest floor like tiny ghosts. The fire tower stood somewhere beyond the next ridgeline, its shadow occasionally visible against the full moon like a skeletal finger pointing skyward. Alex Monroe led the squad through the underbrush, his breathing steady, his pulse quickened not by fear but focus. They'd moved nearly 3 miles since leaving the abandoned shelter. The girl, Elle, was always just ahead, as if daring them to catch up. Beside him, Leo surged forward with renewed determination, darting ahead to sniff patches of disturbed earth, sometimes pausing, then sprinting forward again. His instincts were locked on something, or someone, and Alex trusted the dog more than any GPS. We're tracking a ghost, Torres muttered, brushing a low branch out of the way. No, Alex replied, we're chasing someone who refuses to become one. At the 2nd-mile marker, they found the next clue. A thin branch had been broken and stuck upright in the center of the trail. Tied to it, with a twist of frayed string, was a strip of denim. Not torn, cut, clean. She's marking her path, Alex said. In case she had to double back. Torres studied the cloth. From her jacket, maybe. Alex looked to Leo. Where to now? Leo sniffed the path briefly, then bolted down a narrow trail leading northeast. Move! Harris barked. Stay tight and eyes up. The trees grew denser here, limbs tangling into the path like nature was trying to pull them back. But Leo moved as if born to it, weaving, dodging, never hesitating. Half an hour later, they arrived at the remains of an old hiking rest stop, just a mossy bench and the remnants of a rotted wooden map board. There, scratched into the wood with something sharp, was another message. Still moving. Waterfall next. One flare left. Beside the note was a flare casing, used. Torres knelt, examining it. She tried signaling someone. Alex's jaw clenched. Either we missed it, or no one came. Harris pointed to a trail marker nearby, barely visible beneath grime. Upright arrow fire tower, 2.1 miles. Alex turned to Leo, but the dog was already moving again. The squad moved double time. Every few hundred feet, they found more signs: scuffed dirt, a crumpled food wrapper, a single boot print half washed out by recent rain. They passed through a narrow gorge where the wind howled unnaturally, then over a log bridge spanning a shallow ravine. At the halfway point, the terrain opened to a small clearing and the sound of falling water. The waterfall. Moonlight glistened off the rocks as Leo ran ahead and sniffed near the waterline. There, under a stone slab, they found her next sign, a plastic bag weighed down with a rock. Inside was a final note. Wet but readable. If you've come this far, thank you. I'm going to the fire tower. My radio is dead, but I'll leave the light on if I get there. Please bring Leo. Beneath it was a small, folded photo, a girl about 12, holding Leo as a puppy. Her face was slightly smudged, but her eyes shone with determination. On the back, written in block letters. Lena. Alex stared at the photo, emotions churning in his gut. She's a kid. But she's been thinking like a survivor. Fire towers up that ridge, Harris said. Less than 2 clicks. Then let's finish this. The final stretch was steep. Rocks shifted beneath their boots. The air thinned. Everyone was exhausted, but no one stopped. Not with Lena somewhere ahead, climbing alone. Every tree branch felt like a clock hand counting down her time. Then they saw it. The fire tower. It loomed above the tree line like a ghost made of steel and rust. The cabin at the top was just barely visible through the branches. And, most critically, there was light. A faint yellow glow flickered from a lantern inside the cabin. Alex's heart leapt. She made it. The squad tightened formation as they approached the tower's base. The door to the stairwell had been barricaded with a metal rod from the inside. But after 3 knocks and a pause, the rod was pulled back, and slowly, cautiously, the door creaked open. A small figure stood in the shadows. Dirt on her face. Jacket too big. A bruise on her arm. But her eyes. Alive. Leo barked, short, urgent. The girl's eyes widened. Leo? She fell to her knees, arms wide as the dog bolted up the stairs and launched into her embrace, tail wagging furiously. She buried her face in his fur, crying into his neck. I knew you'd come back, she whispered. Alex and Torres approached slowly. You Lena? Alex asked gently. She looked up, eyes still wet. Yes. I'm Sergeant Monroe. We read your notes. We followed Leo. Her expression flickered, hope, relief, disbelief. You came, she said. You really came. We're here to take you home. In the tower cabin, Lena recounted her journey. She had been alone for nearly 4 days. Her father, a resistance fighter, had hidden the shelter location in case of an ambush. When the village was hit, she followed the plan. They took him, she said quietly. I saw the trucks. They didn't see me. I stayed low and ran. She had trained with her father since she was 6. Not to fight, but to survive. She knew the forest, the maps, the codes. Leo had been her only family since her mother passed 3 years earlier. Leaving him was the hardest part, she said. But I knew. I just knew someone would find him. Alex nodded. You did everything right. Lena looked up. Is my dad alive? Alex didn't answer immediately. I don't know, he said honestly. But we'll find out. She looked down at Leo again, hugging him close. I left notes because I was scared, she whispered. But also because I didn't want to disappear. Alex's eyes softened. You didn't. You did the opposite. He knelt, meeting her at eye level. You left a trail. And now, we'll help you finish it. The base camp was quiet in the early morning light. The helicopters were grounded, the fires from the night patrol had burned low, and the chaos of battle had, for a few brief hours, fallen silent. It was in that lull, when the body stopped moving but the mind hadn't yet caught up, that Sergeant Alex Monroe felt the weight of it all. Lena was alive. Leo was sleeping at her feet. But her father was still missing. In the command tent, Lena sat on a steel chair beneath buzzing lights, wrapped in a fresh blanket. A medic checked her vitals while a case officer from the intelligence division asked her questions in a calm, patient voice. What's your full name? Lena Petrova. Your age? 12. And your father? Yuri Petrova. Former border security. After the fighting started, he joined the local resistance. The officer nodded, jotting down notes. Do you know where he might be? Lena hesitated. I know he was captured. By whom? She looked down. I don't know. Alex, standing nearby, saw the tremor in her hands. You don't have to answer everything right now, he said gently. You've done more than enough. The officer paused. There's one more thing. Your father left behind documents. We recovered a coded notebook in a hidden compartment inside the shelter you stayed in. Do you know about it? Lena nodded slowly. He told me never to open it. Only to give it to someone I trusted. Alex stepped forward. She can give it to me. The officer handed over the sealed package, a battered leather-bound notebook wrapped in waterproof cloth. Alex held it carefully, like a relic. We'll have our analysts examine it, the officer said. But if your father knew what he was doing, there might be something important inside. Later that day, Alex brought the notebook to the intelligence lab. It took hours, but eventually a linguist and a cryptographer cracked the first layer. Inside were field notes, tactical sketches, and lists of names, most of them coded, but some clearly identified as collaborators with foreign-backed forces. But buried among the intelligence files was something else. A letter. Written in Yuri Petrova's hand. Addressed to Lena. Alex read it in silence. My dearest Lena. If you're reading this, then I have failed to return to you, and for that, I am sorry. I promised I would come back, and I never intended to break that promise. But the world we live in now is one where good men die trying to do the right thing. I told you that if anything happened, you were to go to the shelter, stay with Leo, and leave notes behind. I told you that because I knew someone, somewhere, would find him. And if they followed him, they'd find you too. You are the best thing I ever did. Your strength, your mind, your heart, they are your compass. Don't ever let fear rewrite your story. Let your voice be your map. Let your courage carry you. And never stop believing that someone will come. They always do. With all the love in the world. Papa. Alex folded the letter and handed it to Lena in the medical bay. She held it in trembling hands, eyes wet but unblinking. Did he say anything else? She asked. Alex smiled faintly. He said you were braver than most soldiers he ever knew. She wiped her eyes. I don't feel brave. He leaned closer. That's exactly how you know you are. The next week brought both answers and complications. Analysts confirmed the intelligence in Yuri's notebook detailed not only collaborator identities but the locations of multiple prisoner transit camps. One of them matched reports of a convoy seen leaving the region the day Lena's village was attacked. It was likely, but not confirmed, that Yuri had been taken there. Command began preparing a search and recovery mission. But these things took time. Lena spent her days under guard, enrolled in a temporary school within the base's safety zone. She met other children. She taught one of them how to train a dog using Leo's commands. Every evening, she sat near the helipad, watching the skies. "Waiting for your dad?" Alex asked one evening. She nodded. "I promised I'd wait." "I didn't say how long." Alex sat beside her. "I've seen a lot of people give up. You're not one of them." She looked down. "I left notes because I couldn't scream loud enough." "You left something better," he replied. "A message someone could follow." She smiled softly. "Like breadcrumbs." "Like a mission plan," he corrected, grinning. Weeks passed. Then one morning, the radio crackled. "Inbound transport, refugees recovered from Camp Echo 9. Multiple civilian IDs. One possible match, Yuri Petrova." Alex dropped his coffee and ran to the landing pad. Lena was already there. The transport chopper descended slowly, its side door opening before it even touched the ground. And there he was. Thinner. Bruised. But alive. Yuri Petrova stepped onto the concrete pad and locked eyes with his daughter. They didn't run. They walked. Slowly. Silently. Until their arms wrapped around each other and neither spoke for several minutes. Leo circled them both, tail wagging madly, barking once, twice, as if to say, "I told you." Alex stood back, eyes burning, hands on his hips. Harris clapped him on the back. "You good, Sarge?" Alex nodded. "Yeah." For the first time in a long time. That evening, the camp held a small ceremony. Nothing formal. No medals. Just a meal shared between soldiers, refugees, and the quiet ones who'd made all the difference. Lena sat beside her father, smiling as he showed Alex the first survival map she'd ever drawn at the age of 6. "She was better than me by 8, Yuri joked. "She's still better than most of us," Alex said. Leo lay curled at Lena's feet, finally asleep with no fear in his eyes. And so, a note tied to a dog's collar had led to the rescue of a girl, the recovery of critical intelligence, and the beginning of something new, a foundation, a mission, a legacy. Because one girl left a note. And one soldier answered it. The dust had finally settled around Camp Selene. Soldiers returned to routine drills. Choppers came and went. But in the intelligence division, something unusual was unfolding, something sparked by a child's crayon-colored sketch buried among weapons-grade secrets. Lena's map. Drawn on the back of a page from her notebook, it showed simple things: a red tree, the second creek, a broken railcar, the fire tower. But beyond those, it showed places no military satellite had marked. Trails, dead drops, shelter hollows, and old power line clearings that were invisible to the digital eye. Yuri, sitting beside his daughter in the briefing tent, explained it simply. "She memorized everything I taught her. Every path, every code, every supply cache we ever prepared." And then she expanded it. "She drew things you didn't show her?" Alex asked. "She found them herself," Yuri replied with a slow nod. "And logged them. In her own way." Analysts stared at the sketch, then compared it to existing satellite recon and intercepted radio patterns. What emerged was astonishing. Lena's personal trail map overlapped not only with known safe routes used by displaced civilians, but also with at least 3 smuggling channels, 2 underground weapons caches, and 1 unmarked rebel checkpoint the military hadn't even discovered yet. She had done all of it without realizing its full value. She was just trying to survive, Yuri said softly. But she was also protecting others. Without even knowing. Within days, her map was scanned, digitized, and annotated. It was codenamed Operation Crayon, a quiet tribute to the way it had been drawn, using scavenged art supplies in a war-zone bunker. The intel team ran it through predictive modeling software. Results showed that if patrols had used Lena's trail to reach known refugee routes, an estimated 200 additional lives could have been saved earlier in the conflict. "She's not just a survivor," Harris said during one debrief, "she's a strategist." Lena blushed when she heard that, hiding her face behind Leo's neck. But the truth was now undeniable. The little girl who had left a note for her dog had left behind far more than a plea. She had left a blueprint. Soon, Operation Crayon became the core of a larger campaign, a joint military-humanitarian effort to recover civilians, intercept rogue paramilitary convoys, and identify safe zones with field accuracy. Units deployed into the forests, relying on Lena's original sketch as a navigation supplement. Alex led several of these teams himself. Each time, the maps proved accurate. One patrol found a hollowed log exactly where Lena had marked safe if rain comes. Inside were 5 children hiding, barely breathing. Another unit found a buried water canister beside a moss-covered rock where Lena had drawn blue mushrooms. The water was still drinkable. It saved 2 wounded civilians. Each success fed the next. Meanwhile, back at Camp Selene, Lena was asked to speak to other displaced children now housed in nearby relief stations. She hesitated at first. Public speaking wasn't her strength. But with Leo beside her, she stood before them, shy but steady. She didn't give orders. She told stories. "I was scared," she said one afternoon, speaking to a circle of girls her age. "I didn't know if my dad was alive. I didn't know if anyone was coming. So I pretended someone was always reading my notes. I didn't want to feel invisible." A girl raised her hand. "Were you ever really alone?" Lena smiled gently. "Not really. Leo never left. And the soldier who found my note, he read it. And followed it. That's all it took." Her story spread. The camp counselor later said, "You didn't just save lives. You gave children permission to believe they matter." As the months passed, Operation Crayon led to the establishment of 3 semi-permanent rescue corridors and 2 field schools for orphan children. Lena's original map, laminated and framed, now hung in both the command center and the newly built learning center just outside Camp Selene. Visitors often stared at the uneven crayon lines, the red squiggles, the crooked trees, and whispered to each other, "That's the map." And next to it hung the first note Alex ever found. "Please don't leave him. He's waiting for me." One afternoon, Alex took Lena and Yuri to a quiet part of the base where a small granite memorial had been erected. On it were the names of civilians rescued during Operation Crayon, including a line at the bottom. "Dedicated to Lena Petrova and Leo, for mapping hope." Alex handed her a box. Inside was a compass, engraved with her initials and a star symbol matching one she'd drawn next to the fire tower on her map. "This," he said, "is to remind you that no matter what happens, you'll always find your way. And you'll probably help others find theirs." Lena held it gently, blinking back tears. "Do you think I could ever do this for real?" Alex tilted his head. "Do what?" "Be someone who finds people. Who makes maps. Who helps." "You already are," he said. "But if you want to do it officially, there's a place for you." Yuri placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever you choose, you'll never do it alone." Leo barked once, tail wagging. That evening, Lena sat under the stars with her notebook again, this time sketching a different kind of map. Not of survival, but of rebuilding. It had gardens, and tents, and bridges. It had paths that led to clean water, to books, to safety. She labeled them in colorful handwriting. Friendship Trail. The Trust Bench. The Red Tree of Believing. When she was done, she handed it to Alex. "This one," she said, "is for after the war." He took it without a word, nodding, and placed it inside his field journal, right next to her original note.
It was a crisp spring morning when the message went live. At precisely 9 o'clock hours, every radio channel under Allied military control across the region began broadcasting a new voice. Not a general or a president, but a 12-year-old girl with a quiet, steady cadence. A girl who had been silent for too long, and now was being heard by thousands. The broadcast opened with static, then. "My name is Lena Petrova. I was separated from my family when my village was attacked, but I left notes behind, and someone followed them." In the intelligence center at Camp Celine, soldiers stopped what they were doing to listen. In distant, occupied towns where people crouched over smuggled shortwave receivers, the voice broke through like sunlight. "If you are scared, if you are hiding, I want you to know that someone is coming. Not always fast, not always loud, but someone will read your message if you leave it. Don't give up." Alex stood near the broadcasting station, headphones around his neck, heart thudding in his chest. He hadn't written Lena's words. She had insisted on that. "They have to come from me," she had said, "or they won't believe it's real." The decision to let Lena speak wasn't taken lightly. A child on the airwaves during a conflict could draw criticism. But the leadership agreed. Her story wasn't a weapon. It was a lifeline. Colonel Warren, the region's humanitarian liaison, had pushed hard for the broadcast. "She's not propaganda," he said. "She's proof. And right now, proof is more powerful than any speech." The message was pre-recorded but raw. No polish. No edits. Just truth. If you have a dog, stay with him. If you have a safe path, mark it. And if you can write even a few words, leave them somewhere. Someone might find them. And if they do, they'll follow. By day's end, the transmission was rebroadcast over 20 regional frequencies. Some versions were translated. Others were aired through civilian aid trucks with rooftop speakers as they passed shattered villages. And the response was instant. In one occupied town, a little boy named Petya left a chalk message on a collapsed school wall. "I have a dog. His name is Miro. We are hiding. Our old map is still good. Please come." He tied a red ribbon around Miro's collar. That evening, a scout patrol found them, hiding in a burnt-out bakery with half a can of beans and 3 candles. He had drawn a map. On the back, he'd written, "I heard the girl. I believe her." In the following week, over 40 new messages were found. Notes etched into bricks with charcoal. Plastic bags tied to fence posts with GPS coordinates. Scratched words into wood panels, still here. Please. Messages left under rocks with pieces of childlike art. Arrows drawn in ash pointing to dugouts or abandoned wells used as hiding spots. Each one led to someone. Some were alive, some weren't. But every message received a response. And word began to spread. The girl with the dog is real. She survived. And she's helping others. At Camp Celine, a new division was created under Operation Crayon, Project Echo. Its mission: to monitor, decode, and respond to field messages left behind by civilians across the conflict zone. Lena was asked to help. She was too young to join official briefings, but she sat in a small side office, coloring maps and helping soldiers recognize her kinds of signs, how she used ribbon color to indicate danger, how symbols next to trees meant hidden shelter, how a star shape meant food buried here. Her drawings now had a standardized legend. Intelligence analysts referenced it daily. "What does a red triangle mean again?" one asked. "Stay away," Lena replied instantly. "Booby traps or snipers. I only used it once." One night, during a quiet shift, a scout returned with a soaked, torn message. My brother said the girl left notes. So I did too. It was signed with the letter T. Lena held the paper and stared at it for a long time. She believed me, she whispered. Alex sat beside her. You're a signal now. You shine in the dark. That's why they follow you. Soon, reporters heard about her broadcast. News outlets began requesting interviews. Governments asked if she would record messages for broader civilian outreach. Lena declined most of them. She didn't want to become a symbol. She wanted to stay real. But she agreed to one short segment on an international children's radio show. When asked what she would say to other kids who were scared, she replied, "Even if no one's talking to you, even if it feels like no one sees you, leave something. A note. A word. A drawing. Anything. Someone will read it. Someone will know you were here. That's how the world hears you." Back at base, Leo became a local legend. Soldiers brought him treats. Medics rubbed his ears. Lena taught him a new command, echo. When spoken, he would run to her side and sit, waiting for instructions, like a living transmission line. You built a relay, Torres said, smiling. A dog-powered communication network. Lena grinned. Faster than a radio. That month, 27 civilians were recovered thanks to Project Echo responses. Most of them were children. The team added a simple line to each mission report. Read the note. Follow the path. Alex added a silent postscript of his own. One girl changed everything. One morning, as the sun spilled across the eastern ridge, Lena stood near the old training grounds and looked up at the sky. She was holding a new piece of paper. Just 2 words, written in big, looping script. Still listening. She tied it to a wooden post at the camp's entrance and walked away with Leo. The note flapped gently in the wind, catching rays of golden light, waiting to be read.
A light breeze rustled the pages pinned to the message wall at Camp Selene. The wall, once just a canvas tarp used for field orders, had become something sacred. It now held copies of every note, drawing, and map fragment that had led to a rescue. Red string connected related finds. Photos of recovered children were pinned with simple labels: found, safe, home. In the center of it all was Lena's first note, now laminated and framed. Please don't leave him. He's waiting for me. And just below it, a new sheet had appeared. Handwritten. Pressed flat with 4 silver pins. Lena's handwriting, unmistakable. The title read, A Letter to the Lost. She'd written it alone, late one evening, after helping the Project Echo team decode another message. A boy named Kareem had drawn a compass with 5 arrows. Lena instantly understood it. The arrows pointed to a location near an abandoned river checkpoint. When the scouts found him, he had 2 siblings with him, huddled beneath an old satellite dish. That night, Lena returned to her tent and wrote from her heart. To anyone who feels invisible right now. I don't know where you are. I don't know what you're afraid of. But I know how it feels. I know what it's like to sleep in places where the ground is cold and the sky doesn't look the same. I know what it's like to listen for footsteps and pray they're not coming your way. I know what it means to send your dog ahead and hope he finds help. To write something on a torn piece of paper and leave it behind, just in case someone sees it. To wonder if the world is still out there, or if it's forgotten you. But it hasn't. I didn't think anyone would read my note. I thought it would blow away in the wind, or sink into the mud. But it didn't. A soldier picked it up. And he followed it. And others did too. If you're reading this, it means you're still here. That matters. That's enough. You don't have to yell. Just leave a sign. Draw something. Mark a trail. Whisper through whatever you have. Because someone will come. We're listening now. All of us. And we won't stop. Lena. When the letter was posted, no announcement was made. It didn't need one. People just came. Soldiers. Medics. Pilots. Children. Refugees. Interpreters. Some stood and read it in silence. Others left responses, short messages scribbled on torn paper, folded drawings of dogs, thank you notes from children too shy to speak. Soon, the wall had to be expanded. A new tarp was added. Then plywood. Then a roof. They called it the Echo Shelter, a sanctuary where notes could be read, voices could be remembered, and silence could be broken. Yuri watched his daughter from afar. He hadn't yet found the words to say everything he needed to, but in moments like this, he didn't need to. She was healing. And not just herself. That week, Lena's letter was translated into 10 languages and delivered by drone and speaker broadcast into areas too dangerous for ground vehicles. Local translators read it aloud over low-power frequencies. Children began responding in kind. One message, retrieved by a patrol near the edge of the conflict zone, read, I heard Lena's voice. My brother and I buried a red ribbon near the big pipes. That's where we are. 2 days later, the children were rescued. In one field hospital, a boy recovering from injuries asked if he could draw a reply. He created a poster with the words, We see your light. It was posted on the message wall the next morning. Lena stared at it for a long time, then whispered, That's what we're doing, isn't it? Alex smiled. Every single time. The Echo Shelter became more than a memorial. It was where families came to search for missing relatives. Where scouts dropped off new messages. Where new recruits were briefed on field communications using child-coded signals. Every time a note led to a rescue, a small bell was rung, and everyone nearby paused to listen. No clapping. No cheers. Just that clear, soft chime. One more voice heard. One more person found. Lena continued writing. Not just maps or field notes. She began journaling her memories, of the night her father taught her to tie knots, of the creek where Leo first learned to swim, of the moment she realized a note could speak louder than a shout. Alex read every page. This isn't just a record, he said one evening. It's a guidebook. A field manual for anyone trying to find the light in the dark. She blinked. Maybe one day I'll make it a book. You already have, he said. You're writing it every day. Meanwhile, the note that had started it all continued its journey. Lena's original message was now printed on the cover of Project Echo's field training manual, distributed to units across multiple Allied zones. It became a mantra. Please don't leave him. He's waiting for me. A reminder that messages matter. That voices don't fade. That silence, if you listen closely enough, is always full of someone trying to be found. And sometimes, all it takes to break that silence is a girl with a pencil, a dog with a memory, and a soldier willing to stop and read. Long after the battles quieted, after the roads were cleared and the shelters rebuilt, Leo still remembered. He remembered the red tree. He remembered the scent of burned wood, of rain-drenched soil near the broken railcar, of Lena's scent lingering in the fire tower steps. He remembered the feel of rope around his neck when Lena tied that first note to his collar. He remembered the way she looked at him and said, Go find someone. Please. And he had. Now, he walked the campgrounds like a dignitary. Soldiers saluted him jokingly. Children petted him reverently. He tolerated the attention, but his eyes were always scanning. Watching. Assessing. The Echo Shelter remained his favorite place. Each time a new note was pinned, Leo would walk by, sniff it, then sit beneath it. As if blessing it. He's picking up the stories, Taurus once joked. But Alex, watching from nearby, didn't laugh. He's remembering them, he said. Just like he remembered hers. One afternoon, a group of scouts returned from a patrol north of the river with a small boy, no older than 5, carrying a ragged stuffed animal and trembling from cold and fear. His voice was hoarse. He hadn't spoken since they found him. Until Leo walked in. The moment the boy saw the dog, his eyes widened. "Echo," he whispered. The soldiers froze. Leo trotted up and gently nudged the boy's stuffed toy with his nose. The boy dropped to his knees and threw his arms around the dog. Later, when Lena asked the boy how he knew the name, he simply pointed to a burned scrap of paper in his pocket. On it was a drawing of a girl, a dog, and a radio tower. Below it, the words, "Follow Echo." He'd found it near an abandoned car and followed the road it pointed to until the scouts spotted him. Word of Leo's intuition began spreading far beyond Camp Saline. A veteran from a distant post visited with his own canine unit and said, "We've read about him. Your dog doesn't just track. He connects." Yuri, watching from a corner, nodded. "He doesn't follow orders. He follows memories." And indeed, Leo often led patrols down paths no one had planned, paths where, inevitably, someone or something was discovered. A note. A ribbon. A drawing. A meal kit dropped by a fleeing family. "Why does he go there?" someone once asked. Lena answered quietly, "Because that's where she would have gone." She didn't mean herself. She meant the version of her who was still out there. The girl who hadn't been found yet. The girl whose scent Leo still carried in his bones. One cold morning, Alex awoke to find Leo sitting outside the Echo shelter, facing east. Lena joined him a few minutes later. "What is it, boy?" she asked. Leo stood, looked at her, then at the trailhead. He barked once. They followed. The route wasn't unfamiliar, one of the early evacuation paths near the second creek, but the terrain had shifted since the spring floods. Fallen trees blocked key junctions. Mudslides erased trail markers. It looked nothing like the map. Still, Leo walked with purpose, pausing at key bends, sniffing the wind. 2 hours in, they found it. A rusted lunchbox, half buried beneath ivy. Inside, crackers, a drawing of a house, a folded plastic map, and a note written in careful, deliberate script. "This is my trail. If you're scared, you can follow it too." Lena picked it up slowly. This was someone else's safe place, she whispered. Alex inspected the map. She was making her own markers. "Just like you." They called it in. Hours later, 2 children were found in a tunnel marked on the girl's map. Leo had brought them there. Not through smell. Not through instinct. But through understanding. The scientists and handlers couldn't explain it. "He's responding to known landmarks," one said. "But not just physical ones. He's identifying behavioral patterns," said another. "It's like he's tracking intention." Alex didn't need a lab to understand. He remembers what it means to look for someone. That evening, Lena sat beside Leo and told him a new story. "Do you know what they say now?" she asked, scratching behind his ear. "They say the reason you found me wasn't just luck. They say you remembered my route." Leo blinked slowly. "They say you didn't track me. You walked my map in reverse." She paused. "I think, you just never stopped believing I was out there." He let out a low, satisfied huff and lay his head on her lap. Later that week, a reporter from an international agency visited Camp Saline. He asked to interview the girl and the dog who started Operation Echo. Lena agreed, but only if she could bring Alex. They met near the message wall. "So," the reporter asked, "do you think your dog is special?" Lena looked at Leo. Then at the wall. "Yes," she said. "But not because he's a hero." "Why then?" She paused. "Because he didn't forget me." She looked the reporter in the eye. "And in war, being remembered is the rarest thing in the world. After the interview aired, children from around the globe sent drawings and notes addressed to Leo. Thank you for not giving up. I would want a dog like you. You're my favorite soldier. Lena hung everyone in a new tent beside the echo shelter. She called it Leo's Trail. Inside were shelves of notes from children who had been found, or were still missing, or who just wanted to say something out loud. It became the heart of the camp. And Leo? He just sat in the center. Listening. Waiting. Remembering. Because even after the sirens stopped, even after the maps were redrawn, even after the notes turned into memorials, Leo remembered the ones who were still waiting to be found. And he never stopped reading the silence. The war didn't end with a trumpet or a banner. It ended with silence. A strange, unfamiliar calm after years of chaos. The guns stopped. The borders froze. The skies held no more drones. But long after treaties were signed and leaders gave their speeches, the stories of the lost still lingered. Not in newspapers. Not in official records. But in notes. In trails. In names whispered through forests. And among those stories, one note remained, untouched, unread until now. It was found months after hostilities ended, in the storage room of a forgotten checkpoint north of the Red Tree. A soldier sweeping through for mines kicked a loose tile and uncovered a small tin, rusted on the outside but sealed tight. Inside, folded carefully, was a note. Not scribbled. Not frantic. But calm. Thoughtful. Intentional. It read, "If someone finds this, I want them to know, he didn't run away. He followed my scent because he trusted I was still alive. He stayed at the house because he believed in promises. He waited for me, even when I was far away. So please, if you find him before you find me, tell him this, I didn't leave him behind. I left him a path to follow. And if you're the one reading this, then maybe you're the one who followed it. So now I'll ask you one thing, when you go back, leave a note too. Not for me. Not for him. For the next person. The next child. The next one afraid of being forgotten. Because this trail doesn't end with me. L." When the note was delivered to Camp Selene, it was handed to Alex first. He sat in silence for a long time, rereading each word. Then he passed it to Lena. She stared at it, her hands trembling. "I remember writing this," she said. "It was the first thing I ever wrote after I left the house. Before the shelter. Before the tower." She folded it again. "I never thought it would be found." Alex smiled. "But it was. Just like you." That night, Camp Selene held its final lantern walk. The war was over. The mission zones were being decommissioned. The shelters would become schools. The message wall would become an archive. But the walk would continue, one final time, as a promise. Children and soldiers carried paper lanterns along the Echo Trail. Each light carried a name, a hope, a memory. At the front walked Lena. By her side, Leo. And in her hand, the final note. She stopped beneath the red tree, where it had all begun. And pinned the note to the trunk. Alex stepped beside her. "You ready?" Lena nodded. Then, from her backpack, she pulled out a fresh, blank piece of paper. And she wrote, "If you find this tree, then you've already started. Keep going. The light is ahead." She tucked it into a waterproof capsule and tied it to a new ribbon, this one gold. And she left it there. Not because she needed saving. But because someone else would. Years later, people would visit the Echo archive built near the trail. They would read the notes, trace the maps, follow the story from the girl to the dog to the soldier. And at the end of the trail, they would still find that tree. And still find that message. Some would call it history. Others would call it faith. But those who understood, those who once waited to be found, they called it something else. A promise. Lena grew older. She went to school. She became a cartographer and humanitarian field guide. She taught others how to read trails left in silence, scars in trees, bent grass, fabric on branches. She published a book called Trail of the Voice, now required reading in relief agencies worldwide. Alex became a mentor to young officers. He taught field ethics. Every first lecture, he showed them a scanned copy of the note that started it all. And Leo? He passed peacefully, surrounded by friends, curled in a field tent beside Lena. She buried him under the red tree. The collar still had her note folded in the back pocket. And a tag that simply read. He remembered. They built a stone marker at the tree's base. No name. Just a line. For those who followed the silence and answered it. Beneath it, engraved into the roots, was the original note. Please don't leave him. He's waiting for me. And somewhere out there, in forests and fields, someone else was writing a new message. A new map. A new voice. Because the trail doesn't end with one girl. Or one soldier. Or one dog. It continues wherever someone chooses to listen. And if you ever see a ribbon tied to a tree, if you find a folded paper tucked beneath a stone, if you hear a soft bark in the woods and feel like you're not alone, stop, read, and follow. Because someone is always waiting to be found.